All right, everybody, this is the Your Little Castle show, and good fortune, luck, just being that guy that people notice, but then it's like, well, who is this guy? What's he doing around here? And maybe it's all of the above. You're like, what? But you had been familiar with the Cardinal Cowboy a little bit, is that right, Tom?
Yeah, somewhat. I
Okay.
mean, mostly from social media, I think.
Oh, really?
And seeing your stuff out and about, and Facebook, Instagram, those kind of places.
Those are fun. Yeah, I do a lot of that, and I do it all myself.
Yeah.
But I'm working hard to try to impact them. Now you guys know the story. How much of that story did you know? We did like the 7-minute version about why I do all this.
Well, we had talked a few months back, and you told me some of the issues that you had as a younger person, health-wise and so forth, and
hit by a drunk driver and was in a coma.
in a coma, and it's an amazing recovery that you've made, obviously. And no, I knew some of that, but I thank you for the 7-minute version. That was good.
Yeah, and like I said, I can go on for hours. People ask me to speak at other locations and come to events and pay me to do that, but I just took at certain points in my fun. I like to highlight the leaders in the community. They're just leaders, not business people necessarily, but you're a business guy. I guess you got a podcast. We're going to talk about that too.
A little bit, yeah.
And so, welcome everyone to the Your Little Castle show. Tom Calhoun, the St. Louis Blues, it was going to come up on its own, I skipped it. The St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends podcast, make some noise. He is also the PA announcer for a little team called the St. Louis Blues.
Been doing that for quite a while now. Yeah, I started in 1987, Carter, and depending on when people actually see this, I will have done 1,700 consecutive games for the St. Louis Blues without missing one. And that's my claim to fame, I think. If I'm famous for anything, it's for showing up at every Blues game since I started in 1987.
Holy manoli, everybody. So do the math on what that is, but that's crazy. That's consistency. That's what we talk about.
I've been really lucky with health, and that other issues, family events and things like that haven't gotten in the way. Funerals, weddings, and all that.
Sure. You might have had to do some maneuvering to make that happen.
Yeah, but
jump on a late night flight.
For the most part, my wife Barb and my sons have been understanding of me being away that much in the evenings to be at hockey games. And as long as the Blues continue to like the work that I do, I'll keep showing up.
Well, they obviously like your work, and you've been doing it for so long. I mean, other organizations, I think the Cardinals are fairly consistent with who they get on and keep around, but some of those organizations, like every 3 years, there's a new announcer, depending on who you're talking about.
Well, this kind of work traditionally will not be a full-time income for someone. You generally have to have a second or a primary job, and then you do the public address announcing for these games as a second income. And so, people move on. And luckily, I've been able to, over time, consider this a second income. Sometimes when I've been on a primary job, it's become the number one income, but it's been a great thing for me, and I've enjoyed being at the games, meeting the people in the hockey community, and most of those people are just great to be around, and so it's been a joy.
Well, I appreciate you just taking the time to allow a little guy like me come on. You're legendary.
You're not a little guy.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I could tell you, people always be humble, right? But I had a gal on. She was a Blues girl actually, and she ends up being a guy I went to high school's daughter. And I pull her up here, and we're sitting here chatting, and I'm like, "You've just blown it out of the water. You've got 300,000 followers." And she looks at me and she says, "Cowboy, you're the OG, the original social media influencer." I'm like, "Well, I got in it too early apparently and I could go through all of whatever's happened. I still got a lot of followers. If you add them all up, it's kind of a crazy number. That's hard to imagine, but especially times when something was whatever, and then got to start that one over or whatever. But it's just kind of a fun place we're at in this planet right now, because technology and social media, and that's where you're doing your own podcast now.
Yeah,
so you want to talk about that?
Sure. I teach radio broadcasting and podcasting at Southwestern Illinois College, and all of my students for the last number of years have said, "So where's your podcast? What's going on with that? Where can we see it or where can we hear it?" And I said, "Well, I haven't started one yet." So I was kind of shamed into doing something, but really, honestly, the idea came up to do one featuring the legends of blues hockey and tell their stories. As the blues fan base gets younger and a lot of us who've been around for a while get older, I thought it was important to tell the stories of some of the people from the 20th century and early 21st century who have become famous as part of the blues family. And so my first podcast is with Kelly Chase, and Keith Kachuk's coming up soon, and we'll have Brett Hall and a lot of the big name people. And we don't want their stories to go away. We want them to be part of St. Louis's conscience. And so, that's the whole idea behind the podcast. And if there's companies out there that would like to be part of that and sponsor some of it, we're certainly willing to take their calls.
Sure. Well, and who wouldn't want to be associated with what you've built over 38 years and the reputation you've got and how well you've influenced our community with positiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the kind of things you want to be associated with, and that's what I see everything you do. So.
Well, I've always had Stan Musial as my hero from way back in the day when I was a kid. And the way he lived his life and the way he presented himself was kind of a pattern for me. And I think if you can be good to people and say good things about people and try to accommodate their wishes in any way that you have the chance to, I think you should. And so being a good person has paid off, I think, for me in the longevity I've had with the blues, and I've had a good marriage and haven't had too many fights there, so that's still going on. And I've tried to live a life like Stan would have. And it's paid off, I think. That's
a great role model, and I understand that. I have been fortunate to work with somebody very high up with the Cardinals, and they've connected me with a number of things. And this is that I kind of keep private, but a lot of people see me. We interviewed Brian Schwarzy, who is Stan Musial's grandson.
Right.
And Brian and I become friends, and that's a great connection. But this friend, I helped her son. I didn't realize who I was helping when he'd been through a coma. In a bad situation. I'm at a charity event, and I don't realize who that lady was, but I'd like to help her son. Come to find out, the reason we were in Busch Stadium in the Champions Club is because of the association she has with them, that she could make that happen. And I don't even know how that'll happen, but maybe that's whatever. But they said, you know what, you want to help along those lines. I think you're right. This is a great platform if you do more of this. That's what we're trying to share, some of our secrets, some of our trademark attributes, things we try to do in the community. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, I'd like to help that lady. I've been through a coma. I came through it. I know what that takes. There's very few people I can imagine to be standing here and say I can help that person. But if I don't, I feel like I'm kind of a jerk. And they said, you know who that lady is? And I won't say who she was. I'm like, oh, well, I still like, they go, no, we told him what you're about. You want to work with him? And I've helped him. A year later, the guy who was the one who got in with the guys who made this all happen back in 1988 came to me and said, Carter, I'm like, yes, sir, Mr. I won't say his name, but he goes, I got to talk to you. You're the only person that's been able to get through to my grandson. Doctors and experts and all. So I'm like, whoa. We got a series of those that happen now. We're going to do a whole show about that. But to your point, do those things because it helps you get along in life also. Because you help other people, it tends to come around.
I think so. And, I'd like to see more people kind of take that approach and see where it all takes us. There's so much acrimony in the world these days, and people seem to be on one side of the fence or the other, and not on the fence, so they could go either way. But
no, I had a discussion yesterday. We're getting a little bit off, but it's tied into this. And I said, some people think I'm very much on this side. Some people think I'm very much on that side. I just see the problems with both of them and how they both should be working together, because these guys are saying we need help, and these guys are saying we know how to do everything. Yeah. Well, then why don't you guys help them, and then we'll all work together, and this will be good for everybody.
Sure.
And I can't seem to get everybody to do that. I'm not in control as much as I think I am yet, but
Well, the only way you have control over that is of yourself, I think, and hopefully it becomes an example for others.
right. I want to make a mention here, and we've gone much further into the show than I normally, because I want to put your stuff on the walls here. But take a look. It was Allison Bowles. I was drawing a blank, but she was on the show. She's up to 335,000 followers.
Whoa.
And I'll hold this up as close to the camera as I have to put, but you can look her up, Allison K. Bowles. Scott Bowles is her dad. He and I went to high school together. I'll never forget seeing him at the Cardinal game. I'm like, Scott. And then I see this beautiful young lady. I'm like, oh, it's your daughter. I get it. Gotta be nice. Whoa. Anyway, she's a beautiful girl. She was a blues girl. They clean the ice up between.
It's happening a lot with me with granddaughters of my friends I went to school with now.
And she's awesome. She was on the show. Great. Check out Allison Bowles. Let's go in here. Ladies and gentlemen, this show would not happen if not for the sponsors that appreciate what we're doing here. And Brooke said to me, wow, it's going great. You're doing really good. We need to do more to help you with this. And I'm like, we made an agreement. We're good. But let's get this done and help people. But on the walls, you can see, if I got the right camera up for that? Yes, I moved that around while we were talking or zoom it up a little bit. I had the camera up to here. But Carol House Furniture, because you like nice things, where? In your little castle. Brooke like that, right?
There you go.
That's the name of the show. I deliberately changed it from Cardinal Cowboy Show because I don't want to be the host forever. Some people think, oh, Cardinal Cowboy wants to. No.
Folks, you've heard of a one-man band? This guy is a one-man production house right here.
Well, I'm a computer nerd. I thank my parents for, in case the baseball career didn't work out, you're going to summer classes for computers.
Yeah.
And the rest kind of elevated
Took
from
off
there.
From there, huh?
And I just told you, did I tell that story about my baseball coach? I didn't think I'd tell him on camera. I'll tell it real quick. Baseball coach just finally saw him from college last weekend. Went to Chicago. Girlfriend wanted to go up there for Bears, Packers. Met with him. He says, I had one other shortstop that was as good as you needed to be to make it to the big league level. He actually got to Double-A and then tore his hamstrings. And I said, how did I compare to him? He said, at your age, when I was looking at you, 15, 16, 17, whatever, it's on tape, I'm going to put it out there, you were better than him. I'm like, ugh. I should have been a pro ball player, but God had a different plan, right? And you have to come back from those kinds of things and say, I can be upset. And he said it to me, that one we all know. Life gives you lemons.
You make lemonade.
There you go.
Yeah. And I started out to be Jack Buck. And
okay.
I
That's
actually
a good person to emulate.
Actually got to work with Jack for a while at KMOX back in the day. And the first day I worked at KMOX as an intern, I walked into the newsroom, and Jack was going through some news copy in the newsroom, and I stood there next to him thinking, I'm standing next to Jack Buck. And I didn't say anything, and he didn't say anything for a long time. And eventually he looked over at me and said, all right, well, you going to introduce yourself or what? And I said, well, Mr. Buck, I'm Tom Calhoun. I'm the new intern from SIU Edwardsville, and he was so nice and so gracious. You know, he had that Stan Musial approach to life, I think, too, and talked to me for 20, 25 minutes on my very first day and asked me about my goals and what I wanted to do with my career and my family and all this kind of stuff. Jack was a great guy.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of guys that really, I get.
I didn't turn out to be Jack Buck, but I don't regret the direction that things went for
Well,
me.
I mean,
So,
and tell me if the equivalent, is it the U-Man for the Cardinals?
yeah, John Hewlett.
John
yeah.
Hewlett?
Mhm.
And I ran into him recently, and I said, hey, I'd like to have you on, because he called me out one time as at a charity event. And he goes, now batting for the St. Louis Cardinals, Cardinal Cowboy. And we were at Busch Stadium for this. It was kind of being fun. I'm like, he knows who I am? But anyway, but the U-Man, we're going to get a hold of him. And I ran into him. I said, no, you got it. He's like, he told me he'd definitely be able to be on. So he's next on the list. You got to be first.
He's a friend. And, you know, he, a little while ago, a couple of years back, went into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. And I was working with the Hall at the time and, you know, kind of greased the path a little bit for that. So, yeah, he's a great guy. And he's been doing, I think, the Cardinals pretty close to the same length of time that I've been doing the Blues.
Yeah, no, he does a lot of cool stuff. He's got the chemistry outfit. He shares a little bit, not just about baseball, but
Right.
about life and some things outside of the Cardinal games themselves. I've got friends that want me to do some work that we might get the Cardinals to do when it rains or whatever, and we'll talk about that. And they've got connections to make that happen. But bottom line, keep working, do hard work, and things pay off, right? And
Sure. Yeah, that's the way it works. You get out of life what you put into it.
absolutely. And if you cry all the time about what didn't happen, you're actually going backwards because you're wasting your time not being productive with something that you could have been being productive.
Yeah.
We talk about that. Well, here's the websites and everything right there. We'll talk about this here. The PA guy Tom. You can see that on our descriptor here, I believe. There it is. PAguide.tom at PAguideTom. And is that your Twitter?
That's the Twitter handle, yeah.
Right. And then you always are famous for make some noise tonight.
We say that before every Blues game. We say who the Blues are playing us in. So get ready to make some noise tonight.
There it is. Now, if you don't realize who's sitting here with me, now you do, because that's the voice that we all know every Blues game when they're getting ready to get started and in between and everything you do for
I don't know when the Blues thing started exactly, but that's part of the deal too. Welcome to the ice, yours St. Louis Blues. And I think Steve Templeton on Channel 4 does a little hit during the Blues games, and he even does the Blues thing, as part of the weather update.
Right.
Yeah.
The guy who does, are you ready to, I won't even say it now because I might get in trouble. Are you ready to, and then that's trademarked. You can't use that to make money unless you pay them or something. But work on that. Maybe you get the Blues to trademark.
Well, Michael Buffer is his name, and he came and actually did the Blues starting lineups back in the early 2000s one night.
Oh,
and
wow.
it kind of rubbed me the wrong way at the moment, but it turned out pretty good. He does a nice job, and he's made a lot of money on that that slogan, that saying. Yeah.
Wow, connected. That's awesome. So behind me, like I said, I'm going to put on the wall. Make sure I hit my right buttons here. There's the wall to the right. This is your iHeartRadio St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends podcast. Is that the one?
Yeah, it's on iHeartRadio's podcast site, also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and most of the places that people can get their podcasts from, they'll show up on their phone.
Okay. And beyond that, you have a website too. And I'll put that one up now. I'll press the right button. There it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to scroll down for this one. But this talks about the Hockey Legends podcast. Start at the top here, PAGuyTom.com.
Yeah, that's...
and Blues Hockey Legends forwards to that, right?
We'll add some more content to that website over time and make it a little more of a entertaining place to go. But right now, it's just a link to the podcast there. And if for future shows that we do, it says you can see their questions for legends. People can go to the website and ask a question of an upcoming guest. There's a field there where they can submit their...
right, and there it is. I got it. There it is.
Where they can submit their question.
So there you go. Contribute. Help get on the...
Yeah.
Do they get to potentially ask their question on the show?
Yeah, well, we'll ask it for them. I mean, it'll just come to me in text form. But,
okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe we'll work it out some way in the future, now that you bring it up, that they could actually hear their voice on the podcast.
Yeah, I can show you how to do that. I'm a techie nerd to a certain extent, doing these things. And there's all kinds
I might need help with that.
I'll definitely help you. That's for sure. With that, let's get down into some of the stuff. I always try to stick to my mom was a drama teacher, right? We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
She was fortunate. We were fortunate to have John Goodman go to Afton High School, and she said, "John, you get the lead role." And the music director said, "He can't sing." And my mom said, "You get the lead role anyway. I'm the director." And so the rest of it, John is. So
your mom was the inspiration for John Goodman's career.
Right? Absolutely, all of his success came from my mom.
Wow.
No, but it was a little thing that she felt great about. I'm not saying that John's awesome. He earned everything on his own and took the leaps. And I talked to his brother. I used to work with his brother, and he said, "Yeah, I helped him out back in the day." And he went to New York, and we see these old commercials from him on McDonald's and stuff. And I'll never forget. I've never told this story on the show before, if I can tell this to everybody. But remember, I'm 15 years old. You're not supposed to go into. Am I going to get in trouble? You're not supposed to go into a rated R movie unless you're accompanied with an adult.
Right.
And I was, which was my mom. But I'm going, why are we going to see Revenge of the Nerds? That was one of John's first movies.
Was it? I didn't know he was in that.
He was the coach.
Oh, okay.
You got beat by a bunch of nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I was like, my sister's 4 years younger than me. She went along too. So we but overall, that movie, my mom explained, here's what was going on with those things. I
Yeah.
think we've turned out all right. But that was kind of neat. And that's how far. And then it went to Roseanne
Yeah.
and everything. And then my mom, I shouted out, work hard, do similar things like my mom did. She didn't just walk in and say, I want to be the director at this high school and get this theater that you guys are building named after me that John Goodman came in for. But John Goodman, I said, Mom, do you know John Goodman just got his Hollywood star and he called you out?
No,
And she's
really.
like, what? And I said, I'll go show it to you. It's on YouTube. And she said, send me that. That's kind of neat. And so those are the kinds of little things, everybody. That there's all kinds of people we know that have done things like that. Get to know those people, be nice to them, and they might give you a leg up, right?
Yeah, you get more accomplished. What's the saying? You attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just kind of common sense, but so many people are kind of frustrated with where they are in life, and it's just don't go that route. It's tough. Not everything's going to go your way for sure on this little planet. I hope it's not a coma like I had to go through, but you're going to go through something. And he said, Roseanne, my mom, my sister, or my daughter, my director, and Judy Rethwish. I was like, I'll get that. I'll send you the link right where you can start the video right from that time spot. There's a way to do that. So anyway, those are fun things, and we all are trying to do those kinds of things. The people that are most successful, that's how they get there, right?
Yeah.
By helping other people.
And being nice to the right people. That helps too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's get back into a little bit more about all of what you got going on here. This started for you, like you said, 38 years ago with the St. Blues. How did you get into that position where you were given the opportunity to do this for the Blues?
It was kind of accidental, actually. I was working at KXOK Radio at the time, and in those days, in the mid-'80s, KXOK had gotten the rights to broadcast blues games on the radio. Up until that time, KMOX had the rights all along, and Dan Kelly and Ron Jacober, I was working with them at KXOK Radio, and one day Ron called me into his office and said, Susie Matthew over at the Blues called and said they're looking for somebody to do the PA announcing for the Blues games. Would you be interested in that? I said, well, maybe. I wasn't really terribly interested, honestly, at the time, because I was more interested in furthering my radio career and play-by-play sports and that sort of thing. He said, well, why don't you go talk to her and see what they've got? So I did. She asked if I would do it as a favor for the rest of the season, 86-87 season, and then at the end of the season they'd find somebody permanent. And I said, okay, well, I can do it as a favor, sure. Well, towards the end of the season, she called me back in the office and said, we really like the way you're doing this. Would you come back again for the next season? And I said, well, not for what I'm being paid. I don't think I can really do that, Susie. And the next thing she said is, the reason I'm still doing it 37 years later, she said, we will make it worth your time. and they did. And I don't make a ton of money at it.
But now you've got a yacht and a big building. No,
yeah,
but you've done all right.
So. But yeah, it's turned out to be a great thing for me over time, and I thank her for saying those words. It was a good thing.
We talk about this on the show very often too. It's not the money. My mom even said, Mom, things are going, and my dreams could all come true, and then I'll have enough money to pay for a baseball field that's covered, because Midwest we don't get to play baseball during the winter.
That's a neat project.
And then she goes, you remember Cowboy? She said, she doesn't call me Cowboy. She calls me Carter's my real name. It's on my title up here.
Yeah.
But money is not what makes you happy. And I'm like, got to keep that focus. I said, I know, Mom. I realized that because Lord knows, my mom was like, stop doing so much charity work. You got to pay your bills. And she's a teacher. But those are the kinds of things we get to do. And the money's not always the most critical thing. You got to have that to survive on this little planet. But when you get to go out and impact the lives like you get to do, you talked about something, I guess I'd realized that, but you do those little voiceovers for somebody's birthday. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, Cameo.com. I think a lot of people are familiar with that, and since it came along a few years back. And, people go to this website on their phone, and put it in there, and it sends me a notification that somebody's interested in a cameo from me, which turns out to be usually a little 2-minute or so video. Happy birthday, or congratulations on the wedding, congratulations on the new job, etc. Something along that line. I've done a few where I introduce a kid's hockey team or something like that too. So, um, it's a little bit of money attached to it that they can send my way. And when I first started out, I was donating a lot of that money to charity, and I'm still doing a little of that. But it's kind of a fun thing more than anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
A
based on what
way
you
to
told
connect
me,
with the
people are
fans,
donating.
yeah.
I'm like, Tom Calhoun's time has got to be like $250 an hour to start, and you're doing it for nothing.
Well, practically nothing. Yeah, it's more of a fun thing for me to do than anything, and way to connect with fans and keep them engaged.
Way to go. That's what we're talking about. I knew it would be a good interview. We're almost out of time for the half hour, but what I'm going to do, which I do periodically, is go ahead and let's just keep rolling,
Okay.
and we'll go over, and I'll figure out a way to cut it down to what I got to put it to, and that part will air on ABC, and it'll air one time. But most people hopefully come back and look at the full version and watch that all on ABC. So
Awesome.
I'll get you out of here by midnight. Is that right?
Midnight? Yeah.
Just joking, Barb. All right, we've got just a couple more minutes here, but we got so much to cover, and we kind of just get into it and miss some of the things I want to get on. What do you think? What is this that led to your success? I mean, how did you end up being at the level? I guess a history in radio, but I mean, I can imagine there's a lot of people that want that job, and they said, "No, we got our guy."
It's all my brilliance and talent that
I understand.
No, really, I think anybody would tell you who has any kind of a position similar to what I have, that a lot of it is being at the right place at the right time. And I happen to be at the right place to be invited to do the Blues PA announcing. I was, sure, I did get an education that led me in the proper direction, and I worked in radio for a number of years before the opportunity with the Blues came along. But it as I explained before, it sort of fell in my lap. I didn't really seek the job. It happened, and I'm just grateful that it did. And so I would tell people who might be interested in this kind of work that you need to, A, be good at the language, and B, be good at self-promotion, which I never was very good at that, but it's part of the world these days. You have to promote yourself and get yourself out there in front of people so that people know who you are and what you can do. And but the first one is, I tell my students, much more important. Be able to communicate both orally and on your computer or whatever device you're using professionally. There's so much shorthand communication going on in today's world that you will be valuable to companies and people who are interested in communicators if you can communicate professionally. And so I think that's what you should focus on.
All right, so to make it easier for editing purposes, I'm going to say we're going to finish up right now. Stay tuned for the rest of the show. I'm going to edit right here later and put our close in to send it to ABC. So stay tuned for more.